You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast, season 2, episode 27, Ian Happ Extended. Don't forget to listen, download, review, most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow the socials, Fly the W670 on Twitter, Instagram, Fly the W on Facebook, or email us, flythew670 at gmail.com. Crawly, we got breaking news. Why don't you give it to everybody? Something we talked a little bit about in episode number 26.
Yeah, this one was an absolute stunner. Michael Cerami of Bleacher Nation scoops the big dogs, scoops Rosenthal, scoops them all, gets the report. The first thing he said is that the Cubs and Ian Happ are making progress, and literally 10 minutes later, Ian Happ is $61 million richer on a 3-year extension. So the deal will run from 2024 to 2026. So you're talking about $20 million a year for the next 3 years. So you will see Ian Happ, he of the Roasters Coffee and all that stuff, for the next 4 seasons in left field.
Yeah, my first initial reaction is great. Good for the Cubs. Good for Ian Happ. I think it's a intelligent spending type of a contract, if you will. I think it's good for both sides. $20 million a year seems a little bit like a lot, but if he has a good season, which I know everybody listening and you and I hope he does, he would be probably the second best outfield prospect available on the free agent market in the offseason.
No doubt he would be the second best free agent on the outfield market. And so, you know, they went for the sure thing, and it's not going to cost them a ton, especially with the money they have coming off the books. I was shocked because if you remember, prior to the season, Nico got his extension, Ian did not, and Jed kind of made that big deal earlier about not doing negotiations once the season starts and actually not wanting to do them even right before spring training ends. And so I remember when we talked on the episode right before opening day with Nico getting his extension, you know, Ian Happ was, you know, kind of just didn't sound like a guy that was about to get it done. A deal done, you know. He sounded more like a guy that was, I'm just going to enjoy every moment of it, and that's it.
Right. So, he sounded like a guy who thought the writing was on the wall, or he's an incredible poker player, if anything, right?
Yeah, and not only that, you know, he's a union rep, okay? And so I'm a union guy, big union guy, and he's a union rep, and you're surprised because you're right there at free agency. You have it, you know, you're 9 months away from free agency.
He's a two foot putt.
And not only that, like you said earlier, you know, you got Shohei Ohtani and then everybody else, and no one's even close to Ian Happ. Like, no one's close to Ohtani, but Ian Happ is another guy that was far way above what's going to be out there in the free agent market. So, you know, he looked to stand to make some big money, but, you know, he took the sure thing. Trust me, $60 million makes any one of us happy. Right. We would take half that, right? We would even take a quarter of that. But, you know, now all of a sudden, the question and the thing that surprised me that we have been talking about for a very long time is the question about the prospects. With the prospects that you have down there, like most of your top prospects are all outfielders. Brennan Davis, Pete Crow Armstrong, Alexander Canario, Owen Casey. Those are all guys with a bunch of other periphery guys that you never know if one of them is going to break out or nothing. But now all of a sudden, you know, you can argue maybe there's one spot, maybe 2 spots if you want to kind of start playing around with the DH. But, you know, if you're Brennan Davis or if you're PCA or you're any one of those guys, you're the chance of you making it to the majors with the Cubs just got a little bit more difficult.
Right. I would imagine that one of those 2 guys that you just named, Crawly, are the key piece in a trade for a really front-of-the-line pitcher if the Cubs think they're in a position to actually do something.
Yeah, that's what you have prospects for is, number one, they're cheap, and so you can put them in your lineup, and they produce, and you have them under your control, so you don't have to worry about salary. Or the other thing you want to do with them is use them as trade chips. So maybe that's the direction that Jed's going to go. We're going to see the competition just got really interesting. So, you know, good for Ian. Good day for, you know, for Cub fans, you know, who wanted some continuity, who got tired of watching all their favorite guys leave. Well, you got one that's going to be around for a while, and so you have the real beginnings of a new core with Ian Happ and Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson,
right?
Yeah,
Jameson Taillon, Seiya Suzuki, they're all on the same time frame now. So As we're recording this, Crawly, the Cubs just wrapped up the 3-game series with the Mariners. Let's get into it. Let's talk about game number 1. Which did you attend game 1? I believe
I did attend game 1. Yes, that is correct. So that was the first night game of the season. Beautiful weather, huh, Dustin? What a beautiful night to be at Wrigley Field.
Wow. Yep.
And it was the first time that the Cubs were able to use their brand new LED lights that were installed in the offseason. And I got to tell you, as somebody that's gone to many night games, it truly was amazing to see the difference.
So really, truly a difference, yes?
Yes, it was. Imagine like if you went to like a play, right, or a musical. It seems like the grandstand was darker, but the field was so much brighter. So
Gotcha.
from that standpoint, and so it was a really, especially, so I got to see it in person on Monday, and I watched it on Tuesday, and you know, with all this new high def TV and stuff, I think it just made for an amazing picture.
Yeah, it looked really cool. And then as we talk about the game, what happens when they win a game, what they do with the lights was pretty cool. I don't know if you heard the caller on the Mully and Haw show, I believe it was on Tuesday, that had right? He had a couple beers, a Long Island, and maybe a shot, and the lights didn't look much different to him.
I did hear about the Long Island.
I think he called right before you. Yeah,
yep,
that's what it was. Yep.
I noticed a difference right away. I thought it was really cool. And so Drew Smiley was on the bump, hoping to shake off his last start. Pitched well. He went 5 innings, gave up only 1 run. Didn't give up a hit until the 4th inning, but then that looked like it was going to be a disaster. With 1 out, Ty France doubled, Eugenio Suarez walked, and Teoscar Hernandez hit a single, and the bases were loaded with 1 out. Tommy Hotovy came out for a quick chat, and the next batter, A.J. Pollock, hit a sac fly, giving the Mariners an early 1-0 lead. But Smiley got Sam Haggerty to fly out to end the threat and limit the damage to 1 run. And I think, Dustin, I know Pat Hughes always brings this up, getting out of that jam, kind of, giving up just 1 run, seemed to shift momentum the Cubs' way.
No doubt about it.
Ian Happ led off the inning with a walk. He stole second, then ended up on third on an error on the throw by the catcher. Cody Bellinger will double to tie the game at 1. Trey Mancini singled to put runners at the corners and would come around to score on an Eric Hosmer single to give the Cubs a 2-1 lead. Unfortunately, a Patrick Wisdom strikeout and Yan Gomes double play ended the threat. I don't know. I wanted your opinion on this. Adbert Alzolay replaced Smiley in the 6th and was very efficient, getting 4 quick outs before being replaced by Mark Leiter. I thought Alzolay was cruising. I know they worry about his righty-lefty splits, but I don't know. I was a little bit hesitant about the move.
I thought about that as well. I also find it interesting that they're not just solely using Adbert in certain innings.
Right.
It almost felt kind of a high leverage, important moment, and they went to him. Right. And then later on in this series, they're going to go to him in another big moment, but that was in the 8th inning. And so I like the fact that he's not just penciled in where he is a clean 7th inning guy with a lead kind of thing. But I tell you, and you thought the last time Smiley was in that it was okay to leave him in. I wanted him out a little sooner, and so I'm not gonna double guess this. It's going to end up working out for the Cubs, so I'm not going to double guess it. But I do understand where you're coming from. I think Smiley had a couple more outs in him.
I think my concern with Alzolay is he was just cruising, and so I just wanted to let him keep going because that way you don't have to keep burning through bullpen guys, and you're going to see how that's going to come back.
We're going to find out. We're going to find out that might bite you. Yep. Absolutely right, Crawly.
So there's a big moment in the 8th inning that shows the baseball IQ of a guy like Dansby Swanson. If you're someone that just reads the box scores, you're going to miss something like this, right? Brad Boxberger's on the mound. Cooper Hummer leads off with a double. The next batter, J.P. Crawford, hit one that looked like he was going to go up the middle. Swanson got it, but he fired to third to gun down Crawford. And I thought that was just a brilliant play to get the lead runner and kind of, give yourself a little breathing room there on that one. Asked about it after the game, David Ross replied, "That's why the guy wins Gold Gloves." Just very high baseball IQ.
High, super high. And you couldn't be more right about the comment about if you didn't watch the game, you would not have picked up on that play. And that was one of a handful of really key plays in that game.
Absolutely. 9th inning, Michael Fulmer came on to save it, but with 1 out, Jarek Kelenic, we're going to talk about him again. That guy has some pop. He crushed one off the right field scoreboard to tie the game. No doubter. I had to put my W flag. I didn't take it. I just had it out of the bag, but I didn't have it out. But I had to put my W flag back into the bag. And then that takes us to extra innings, where Keegan Thompson is going to take the mound, and Cal Riley would be the Manfred man to start the inning at second, first extra inning game of the year. Keegan Thompson walked the first man he faced, never a good thing. Cooper Hummel putting runners at first and second. But then J.P. Crawford attempted to bunt the runners over. This is another one that didn't show up in the box score. Patrick Wisdom made an incredible athletic kind of diving play on that bunt to get the first out of the inning, which I thought was big. Then Thompson walks Julio Rodriguez to load the bases. Please stop walking people, bullpen guys. But bases went out, but Keegan struck out Ty France. And then Cub killer Eugenio Suarez at the plate. He grounds it to Patrick Wisdom, who steps on the bag, and the game is tied. No runs score. So in the bottom of the 10th, Nick Madrigal replaces Yan Gomes as the Manfred man. Pitcher Matt Brash made a move to second, but I don't think he was expecting Madrigal to be on the move. He had no clue that Madrigal started running the second Brash lifted his legs. And it looked like Suarez was asleep at the switch because he was a little bit in and to the left of the bag. And so it took him a little while to get there. So he wasn't in a good position to receive the throw. So Madrigal made it safely. It was unbelievable.
Well, now the question is, and we argued about this on the Mully and Haw show, I agreed with Madrigal that he saw something, they saw something on the video and knew that Brash, his move was super slow. And the other guys thought that they were just shocked that anybody would pull that kind of crap at that point, and that's why Madrigal was able to get from second to third in that situation.
I think the answer lies somewhere in between. I think you're both right there, because
right.
Madrigal did talk about watching video beforehand, and so he knew what he was looking for. And then at the same time, when Brash turned around, he was looking to throw it to second. It took him he had to do a double take when he saw Madrigal, halfway to third. And so that just threw everything off. And like I said, even Suarez was caught asleep at the switch. So Tucker Barnhart's going to strike out with one out and a runner at third. Nico Horner comes to the plate. He flicks a single into right field, little slider going away, flicks it the other way, just perfect. Cubs had their first walk-off win of the season. Nico had his first walk-off hit of his career. Cubs take game 1, 3-2. And Dustin, like you were talking about earlier, totally unexpected. They're playing Go Cubs Go. The fans are celebrating, but the lights are doing this crazy strobe effect during the celebration. And then they made W's all around the ballpark in the lights. It was very cool.
All right. Now they're saying light the W. Instead of fly the W, the nighttime, we're going to say light the W.
Yeah, no podcast better take that title. So after the game, Yan Gomes found a cowboy hat, which, of course, this is such a baseball thing. Supposedly finds a cowboy hat in the clubhouse, put it on Nico's head while he gave the postgame interview, indicating he was the new sheriff in town. But on the pitching side, Smiley gave up 5 innings pitched, gave up 2 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, 7 Ks. Alzolay, Leiter, Boxberger pitched scoreless relief. Fulmer was charged with the blown save, and Keegan Thompson gets the win for that gutsy performance in the 10th. The Cubs scored 3 runs on 8 hits, no errors. Nico was the hero of the day, going 3 for 5, game-winning RBI. Eric Hosmer was 2 for 3 with an RBI, and Cody Bellinger 1 for 4 with an RBI. So the Cubs take game 1.
Fly that W.
So we get to game 2, and Dustin, you and I, we've been talking about this a lot, not wanting Mastrobuoni or Mancini to be playing in right field, and I was banging the drum hard for Nelson Velasquez.
Yes, you were.
Did not understand why that kid was not on the team, and next thing you know, he's called up from AAA. Javier Assad, we saw him struggle in 2 appearances, just really badly, was sent down. Now, Velasquez didn't start on Monday. He came in at the very end of the game to play defense, but he was the starting lineup on Tuesday night, and good thing he was, because he had himself one hell of a game.
Yes,
he did. Drew Smyly the previous game, Hayden Wesniewski was looking to bounce back from a bad start. Unfortunately for Hayden, he had an even worse start. In the first, he gave up a 1-out walk to Ty France, and then Cub killer Eugenio Suarez hit a 2-run blast to put the Mariners up 2-0. But the wheels really came off in the second inning. That's a combination of a lack of command, sloppy defense, and an umpire squeezing Hayden, resulting in the Mariners scoring 5 runs. Trey Mancini had a fielding error. Dansby Swanson had a throwing error. Hayden walked 2 batters and gave up 3 singles and 6 runs. before David Ross mercifully pulled him after throwing 64 pitches in 1 1/3 inning. And it was the
mercifully, as you said.
Worst possible situation because Roth really needed some length out of Wisniewski after having to use 5 bullpen arms the night before. Michael Rucker came in, but I think he did a good job putting that fire out. I do want to show this. This is one of my favorite Twitter sites. It's called Ump Scorecards. Adrian Johnson was the umpire yesterday, and he was just awful. So the average MLB umpire is accurate 94% of the time and consistent 94% of the time. Adrian Johnson was 4 percentage points below average on accuracy and 5 percentage points behind consistency. 2 of the 3 calls that were among the worst calls he made were against Hayden Wesniewski. I'm not going to blame the umpire for Hayden not having great control, but when you're a young kid and maybe you don't have your best stuff, the last thing you need is an umpire who's not making good calls.
Right, you're right. And we had Tommy Hotovy on today with Mully and Hall on the score, and he just said the kid's just trying too hard. But walks will definitely doom you. There's no doubt about that.
Right. Now, the Cubs put up a run in the second on an RBI single by Yan Gomes to score Cody Bellinger, but it was the 3rd inning when the Cubs offense erupted. So you have to imagine, Cubs are down 7-1, and all of a sudden, Dansby starts off the inning with a single. Ian Happ pops out. Trey Mancini hits his first Cub homer to make it 7-3. Wisdom walks, Hosmer and Gomes single to load the bases for Nelson Velasquez. The Nelson Velasquez I have been complaining about for the last 3 weeks not being on this team. He hits a grand slam to the left field bleachers to put the Cubs ahead 8-7, and Wrigley was rocking. Cubs scored one more.
Was it rocking? Oh my gosh, was it rock? Crawly, it got to the point, and I watch Bulls games because I need to watch Bulls games for work. I don't really watch the NBA unless it's the playoffs outside of the Bulls. I almost turned on. There was a play-in game last night in the NBA between the Heat and the Atlanta Hawks, and I almost went from the Cubs game to that. Thank goodness I didn't change the channel.
Well, Dustin, check out this one from Jordan Bastian talking about the 3rd inning. 52 pitches, 13 batters, 8 runs, 8 hits, 5 singles, 2 homers, 1 grand slam, 1 double, 1 infield single, 1 walk, 1 hits batsman, and 1 stolen base. That and made for one in a pear tree inning. What a game. Not only that, Dansby had 2 singles in the same inning. Now, the Cubs would score 2 more times in the 5th, 3 more in the 6th. They would go on to win this game 14-9. Little fun fact for you, the Cubs became the first MLB team since September 7th, 2001 to trail by 7 runs by the 2nd inning and lead by the end of the 3rd. So that was amazing. But, Dustin, I talked about Wrigley rocking with that grand slam by Nelson Velasquez. A lot of people, a lot of fan bases want to lay claim to the best fans in whatever sport. This is, the 9th game of the season in April, and you have the entire crowd rocking down 7-3. The place is blowing up and the fans are going nuts. Larry Hawley from WGN had video from a few blocks from Wrigley after the home run.
Yeah, that was cool.
You could hear it from blocks away. There is no fan base better than the Chicago fan base, and I'm willing to stake that claim with anybody there. Just so awesome to see the fans in it, and I think they all recognize something special is happening at the corner of 1060 West Addison.
Oh, Crawly, come on. You're not going to get an argument from me on this one. I like to argue with you, but no. I mean, that video was awesome. I saw that as well on Twitter. The place was rocking. I jumped off the couch. My kids were yelling and screaming. I texted my wife who was doing a pickup. I said, make sure turn on the radio really quick if you're not listening to the game. It was great. And the call by Pat and Ron was unbelievable. Coomer did his inner Ric Flair and gave a woo.
Now, as far as the pitching for the Cubs, Hayden, like I said, 1.1 innings. He gave up 5 hits, 7 runs. Only 2 were earned, 4 walks, 1 home run, 0 strikeouts is what I was concerned about, Dustin. You can have a bad game, but, for a strikeout pitcher, that was rough. Michael Rucker, Albert Alzolay, Mark Leiter, and Julian Mayweather all pitched in. They threw 7.2 innings, giving up 5 hits, 2 runs, 0 walks, and 8 Ks. But again, you had to really burn up the bullpen on that one after having to use them a lot the day before. On offense, the Cubs had 14 runs on 18 hits. How about this, Dustin? 9 for 16 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, a stat that really we harped on a ton in season 1 of this podcast.
Right. All 10 hitters reached base, and 9 out of 10 got a hit. Wisdom was hitless, but he drew 2 walks. Dansby was 4 for 4 with 2 RBIs, but in a scary moment, he pulled himself from the game before the start of the 6th inning. We know Dansby's an Iron Man who wants to play every single inning of every single game of the season. First report we got out of there was tightness on the left side, and the first thing I'm thinking is oblique. Cubs Nation's panicking, but after the game, Ross and later on Dansby explained that if you heard the news, Dansby's wife, Mallory Swanson, she's a professional soccer player for the Chicago Red Stars and for the women's U.S. national team, and she had a devastating injury. She had surgery on her knee after an exhibition in Ireland to repair a torn patella. He had been up that day since 4 a.m. And you know, ball players have their routines, and I'm sure the fact that he had that air, I was surprised, but he was going 4 for 4, but it kind of all makes sense after the game. So wishing the Swansons the best.
Absolutely, but it was nerve-wracking. Couldn't get any info off of Twitter, not getting any info off the broadcast, wondering what in the world was going on.
Right. Trey Mancini was 2 for 5 with 3 RBIs. Nico was 2 for 4 with 2 RBIs as well. Nelson Velasquez, star of the game, going 3 for 4 with a walk, a grand slam, and a double. Guess who was wearing the cowboy hat after the game? Nelson Velasquez. Here's the thing, Dustin. That was the Cubs' 3rd victory of 10 or more runs in 11 games. Remember we said the Cubs wouldn't have a lot of crooked numbers in offense?
Right.
Maybe we got to change that narrative. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm happy to change it. I'm happy for that trend to continue. So with winning the first 2 games, they obviously get the series win. They go for the sweep this afternoon. Game 3, Wrigley was hot, not because of the weather necessarily, but because of that breaking news we talked about at the start of the podcast, Crawly.
Right. Breaks right before the game. Stroman's on the mound, who gets people fired up anyway. And then the Cubs get off to an early start. Bottom of the first. Swanson, David Ross, very smart, giving him the day off, letting him rest. No big deal. You got another day off tomorrow. And so I was absolutely fine with that. Nico is short. Magical is playing second. And those guys are batting 1-2. They get singles right away. Happ beats out a double play ball to put runners at the corners. And Cody Bellinger hit a sac fly to make it 1-0. The Mariners are able to come back, though. They get to Stroman in the 3rd inning. J.P. Crawford hit a leadoff double, the first extra base hit of the season given up by Stroh. Julian Rodriguez flied out, moving Crawford to 3rd. Ty France walked, and Cubs killer Eugenio Suarez singled to tie up the game, followed by
Your
a
guy.
My guy.
Your guy. You warned everybody. You warned everybody when we previewed this series.
He loves Cubs pitching. He feasts. Teoscar Hernandez singled to put the Mariners ahead 2-1. The Cubs offense really struggled against Logan Gilbert, who's a really good pitcher, give him kudos, but they couldn't get anything going after the 1st inning. Meanwhile, Brad Boxberger gave up a run in the 7th. Julian Merriweather gave up 2 back-to-back jacks in the 8th inning, including a 482-foot bomb to center off the bat of Jarek Kelenic. He's the one that tied it up on Monday night in the 9th inning. That 489-foot home run was the longest home run in Wrigley since the StatCast era started in 2015. So
yeah,
that was a monster.
He definitely he crushed that ball, and then we talked about it earlier. He hit one off the scoreboard, a little Schwarber style, if you will.
Yeah, and so Stroman pitched 6 innings. He gave up 2 runs on 5 hits, 2 walks, 6 Ks. A quality start. Cubs offense had 2 runs on 5 hits. Bellinger was responsible for both runs, the sac fly in the 1st. And then again, Cubs do nothing until the 9th inning when Bellinger hits a solo home run. So you know what? 2 out of 3 versus Seattle. You're talking about 4 out of 6 versus Seattle and Texas. So I will take that meatloaf homestand any day of the week.
That's right. That's a double plate of meatloaf, Crawly. No doubt about it. A meatloaf sandwich, if you will. You are listening to the Fly the W670 Podcast, Season 2, Episode 27, Ian Happ Extended. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W Podcast. And in this segment, Crawly goes behind enemy lines. He interviews with Blake Harris from ESPN LA and the host of Inside the Ravine Podcast for Audacy Sports.
All right, baseball fans, we are here for another segment of Behind Enemy Lines. Today, Myself, Crawly from Fly the W, is going to be talking a little bit about Cubs with Blake Harris from Inside the Ravine Dodger Podcast for Audacy Sports, and you can find his work on his Substack page. Blake, how's it going?
Going really well. Excited to talk Dodgers Cubs. That's always, ever since I was a kid, one of the series I always really look forward to, just for some reason, because you have two historic teams. Usually the Cubs fan base always travels well when they come to Dodger Stadium, so those series always have a little extra incentive when they're in town. So looking forward to the series because there's a lot of storylines that Dodgers fans are going to want to be following for this upcoming weekend.
I hear you, and for me, I remember Vince Scully one time reporting on Wrigley Field, describing her as the old dame and the lights as pearls, and, fell in love with Vince Scully as any baseball fan would. And then, there was some great matchups in 2016, 2017, as the Cubs went on to win the World Series and as the Dodgers started to really become one of the dominant teams in the NL. And we were, as Cub fans, kind of hoping that we'd have do as well as you guys have, but we had to do a little sell-off, and now we're trying to come back in. But last year, the Cubs and the Dodgers faced each other 7 times, and you guys swept the series 7-0. But this is a different Cubs team, Blake, since the offseason. So hopefully we can put up a better fight than last season.
Yeah, I was going to say it'll be interesting to see how the two teams square off again this season compared to what happened last year, because you can't really get any better on the Dodgers end. Now, if you're the Cubs side, you would hope that you can improve on that somewhat a bit, but I do think it's going to be a much more competitive series this go-around because, like you said, a much better Cubs team than the one that we saw last season.
Now, the last time I really watched any Dodgers baseball was in the postseason. You guys had the bye and you took on San Diego and it didn't go your way. What kind of moves did the Dodgers make in the offseason? I mean, like you said, there's not much place to go. What do you think were some notable maybe additions and then also some notable subtractions?
Yeah, so I mean, the Dodgers, they've just become accustomed to being that team that every offseason they make the big moves, they make the big trades, the big signings. But for the Dodgers standards, this was a very, very quiet offseason. Obviously, they lost guys like Trey Turner, Justin Turner, a few guys that ended up on the Cubs that I'm sure we're going to talk about later. But the biggest move probably this offseason was bringing back Clayton Kershaw, just because he was still on the fence of returning or he was going to retire or maybe go to the Texas Rangers. So bringing Clayton Kershaw back for another season was obviously the number one move. But outside of that, the Dodgers really just, again, quiet by their standards. They picked up guys like Miguel Rojas, Shelby Miller, guys where I'm sure they're going to contribute at some point this season, but not necessarily, names you come to expect. I guess probably the big splash, the big headline move was the Dodgers signing JD Martinez to a 1-year deal. He's a former All-Star. Obviously, he won a World Series with the Red Sox a couple seasons ago. So, again, for a lot of other teams, that would be like, you're having a press conference. This is the move of the offseason. But for the Dodgers, a quiet 1-year move. Again, a very interesting offseason because clearly they wanted to shed some salary, get under that salary cap, maybe because they want to make a push in 2024 for a mega free agent. But yeah, overall, nothing really else to report on that front from the Dodgers this offseason.
Yeah, that's what people are worried about is maybe you guys are shedding salary for the Shohei Ohtani sweepstakes. That would be something.
I heard, I don't know where I saw this. I think it was maybe like a Bleacher Report notification. And I don't know if you actually probably did see this the other day, is that it had the Cubs as a potential sneaky move. Maybe it was like Buster Olney or something, but I saw that the Cubs as a potential sneaky suitor for Shohei. So I thought that was a little interesting because I didn't even have them on the radar.
Yeah, that was a piece by Bob Nightingale, and he had the Cubs down as a sleeper, but we've also heard from John Heyman, who appears on 670 The Score, and an Audacy Baseball Insider, that really it's doubtful. Who knows? The reason Shohei gets kind of thrown around is that the last time when he was entering the market, MLB market, he only wanted to visit West Coast teams as far as being close to Japan, but Chicago was the one team that he did interview with. So we have Seiya Suzuki, who was teammates with him. And, Seiya got injured before the WBC, oblique injury. And so he was joking that he was going to try to recruit Shohei here. So who knows, weirder things are happening. But for the Cubs, they actually did get to spending after a few years of kind of sleepwalking through a couple seasons, in 2021 in the second half, all the players from the 2016 team pretty much were all shipped off elsewhere, lost Chris Bryant, lost Anthony Rizzo, lost Javi Baez. this season. Wilson Contreras went to the Cardinals. That's going to be very interesting when he comes to town. That rivalry will be stoked a little bit more. But the Cubs were in on a shortstop, and so we have Dansby Swanson now. You guys are familiar with him with your battles with the Braves. But boy, he's really been exciting to watch these first couple series that we've seen him. And then we had a really great shortstop in Nico Horner, but we think he's even going to be better at second base. So just seeing those two guys up the middle has been a lot of fun. The Cubs have a lot of one-year prove-it deals. Trey Mancini from the Baltimore, and he was traded to Houston last season. So we have Trey Mancini, we have Eric Hosmer, and then Tucker Barnhart are all guys that are pretty much on very short-term deals. So there's a lot of guys that have incentive to try to do well. And if they do well, the Cubs have talked about adding. And if they don't do well, they're going to be good pieces to flip. And hopefully that's the last time we're flipping, because it's kind of gotten a little bit old.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, I really do like what the Cubs have done, because it seems like it's a win-win situation. Either all these one-year contracts work out and you guys end up making a postseason push with all of them, and then at the end of the season, all right, it was a great run, we'll shed some salary and bid thee farewell. Or if things just hit the fan, unfortunately, like you said, you ship them off, get some, prospects in return, and just hope for the best next season. So I really thought the Cubs had a really solid offseason. I'm still upset about the Dansby Swanson move, just because I was hoping the Dodgers were going to make a move in him. I didn't think they were. I thought maybe because of the whole Freddie Freeman connection, maybe that would maybe give them a little edge. But yeah, so far, I mean, again, it's been 2 weeks since the season started, but I don't think you could have asked for a better start for him.
No. And one guy I did leave out on purpose, one that very well, Cody Bellinger in center field. I know he was MVP at one time and he's had some injuries and struggled, but I'll tell you that, for some teams, just certain positions kind of you just don't have a lot of high end, like historical talent. For Cubs, center field has always been a position. If you asked me to name a third baseman, a first baseman, a right fielder, I could boom, boom, boom. Center field, you really can't think of any great Cubs center fielder. So whether Cody Bellinger ever returns to MVP form, that's yet to be seen. But I'll tell you, it's just really nice to see a guy that can play defense, that reads the ball off the bat, good routes, especially at Wrigley, which is a really tough ballpark to play in.
Yeah, with Cody Bellinger, this is kind of the thing that I was trying to tell Dodgers fans, especially last season, but especially when the Cubs made the move, I was trying to let Cubs fans know. You just kind of have to accept that the MVP Cody Bellinger, is long gone. He's not going to be hitting 40 home runs. He's not going to be one of the, the best power hitters in baseball. But defensively, I mean, you've, again, probably seen it in these first couple of weeks. You're getting a guy that is capable of winning a Gold Glove this season. His speed is still elite. If you could just get average production at the plate, post a 100 WRC plus, get some stolen bases in there, have him draw some walks, maybe cut the strikeouts down a little. That's a player that you're going to be very, very happy about. Again, if you can temper those expectations a little, which again, I looked at his numbers, entering today's game. I think he actually hit a home run today. If that, I saw the clip on Twitter, right? So he's hit a couple homers already, but I did see the numbers were down a bit. But again, it's been 2 weeks. So again, just hope for that league average slash line, and you'll be more than okay with that.
And Wrigley is not a fun place to hit. Luckily, we've actually kind of bumped into some warm weather this week, but that first weekend series against Milwaukee, Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff, and it's 30 degrees with the wind blowing in. Not a fun place to hit. Now, not only did we pay Cody Bellinger $20 million, but we're also paying your backup center fielder, right fielder, Jason Hayward, to be playing out there. How's he doing for you guys?
Yeah, when the Dodgers made that move, I remember back in December, minor league contract, I was thinking, I could have sworn this guy retired. I thought he was out of baseball, did not know he was still going for it. Obviously, a minor league deal, you're like, okay, we'll see what happens. And then entering spring training, in the first week, Dave Roberts said he'd already earned a spot on the roster. And I was kind of like, I mean, he hasn't really proven anything, but the hype he was getting, in the backfields was something. And in the first couple of weeks, he's looked really good. He's looked like the Jason Hayward of old. The last few games has kind of slowed down a bit, but I don't know if you saw this, but about a week ago, he had a home run that was 113 miles an hour off the bat, which is the second hardest hit ball in the StatCast area for Jason Hayward. I'm sure with the Braves, a decade ago, he hit some balls a little bit harder, but the fact that he's hitting the ball hard defensively, he still has enough juice where he's been making some incredible plays. So again, I'll believe it if he's able to keep this up for a couple more months, if the Dodgers pulled off their magic again, but he's been a pleasant surprise so far, and I'm sure you can attest to this. Everything that's been reported about how good of a guy he is in the clubhouse, I was at Dodger Stadium last week in the clubhouse, and he was a great guy. So having that veteran presence, I think for a Dodgers team that lost so much of it this past offseason, I think that's going to be the most important thing. Now, if he puts up some solid numbers, I think that's going to be an added bonus. But again, I think having that veteran, having a guy that's, gotten a lot of postseason experience in your clubhouse, I think that's monumental, especially considering how many rookies the Dodgers have coming in this year.
Yeah, with Jason Hayward, it was a big contract for the Cubs. It was a 7-year deal, and he just never even came close to living up to it. I mean, the thing he's most famous for is the rain delay speech in Game 7 of the World Series. But as far as baseball production, never a lot. But I mean, if you're talking about a role where he's a backup and he's a guy that can, be a good veteran presence and great leadership, absolutely the right fit. But if if you need offensive production from him, if you're relying on that, just wasn't going to happen. But he's still doing great stuff here. He's set up a baseball academy in the west side of Chicago. Still somebody that's very beloved and very respected. And I'm only going to wish him the best, as long as it's just not against the Cubs, but he's a great dude.
Completely agree. Hope he hits 500 the rest of the season, but this weekend, if he goes 0 for 6, you're not going to shed a tear about that.
Right. And so you do got Clayton Kershaw going, and that guy just keeps seeming to always dig into the fountain of youth, always seems to have good stuff. But the guy that scares me the most is the guy that we're facing on Sunday, and that's Julio Urias. And I was joking around. I was talking to my partner today. I said, do you remember he pitched in 2016 in the postseason? That's 6 years ago, and the guy's only 26. I mean, he's just getting better with age.
It's so weird to think about how he made his debut so long ago, like you said, 2016, and the dude is literally only 26 years old. Like, all these mega free agent starting pitchers, they get these contracts. They always get them when they're like 29, 30, 31. Julio's going to be 27 when he's entering his free agency year. And the crazy thing is, I actually talked about this a few podcasts ago on Inside the Ravine, is the fact that me as a Dodgers fan, I still think he's insanely underrated. Like when I was at the game again last Tuesday night, I think, against the Rockies, he threw, I think, 6 scoreless innings, struck out 6, didn't walk anybody. And it kind of didn't even faze me. It was just like, that's another Julio start. Like, it didn't really wow me. It's just because he's so consistent. He's so good. He's not going to be like a Jacob deGrom who's going to strike out 12 and, walk nobody and take a no-hitter into the 7th or 8th. But Julio, the fact that he's really lived up to the hype, because this was a guy when he made his debut at 19, was expected to be this superstar pitcher, had a few injuries that kind of derailed that. But yeah, what he's done these last couple of seasons, the most consistent left-handed starter, I think, in all of baseball. And best of luck on Sunday if that's who the Cubs lineup has to face, because he has been so good this year. I think he has a 1.5 ERA through the first 3 starts. His strikeout rate is like the highest of his career so far. So he's actually somehow getting better. Again, in year 7 or year 8, even though he's only 26.
Yeah, he's 3-0, 20 Ks in 18 innings. So, I mean, he's just rolling. We got Drew Smiley going up. He had a really good second half for us last year. We've had a couple guys. Our top 2 starters have been really good so far this season, and that's been Marcus Stroman, who pitched today. He got the loss, but he only gave up 2 runs. And then Justin Steele's a young lefty, and you guys are going to see him on Friday. As far as the pitcher that, Noah Syndergaard, I remember him in 2015 in the NLCS against the Mets. But I don't know if he's still got the gas on the fastball like he used to.
Not quite. If he tops 94 miles an hour at this rate, that seems like it's going to be a success. I liked the move when I initially heard it because we saw what the Dodgers did last year with Tyler Anderson and Andrew Heaney. So far, the Mark Prior magic has yet to work on Noah Syndergaard. One of our listeners calls it the Mark Prior wizard magic, but hasn't worked yet. So Noah Syndergaard, he's pretty much relying on all of his off-speed stuff now, which is still, upper 80s, lower 90s, but hasn't been pretty. He got revved up in his last outing, was pretty bad during the spring, so it's going to be interesting to see if he's able to bounce back, because he did have a great start, at the beginning of the year against the D-backs. I think he allowed only 1 run, 6 innings, so he's a guy I don't know how to read. I don't know, what exactly you're going to get for him. Earlier this spring, he said he wants to hit 100 again. I think Bob Nightingale even reported that he had already touched 97, 98, which, of course, then you see him, he's 5 miles an hour lower. So I don't know if it's the Nightingale curse on that. But I have hope. I have faith that he's going to turn it around. But yeah, Noah Syndergaard, he's a wild card in the Dodgers rotation, I think, currently.
Now you guys got some injuries. Tony Gosselin looked really good last year, and obviously Walker Buehler with those super, that guy's just crazy. But how has the rotation been holding up? I know we're facing Michael Grove, I want to say on Saturday, and I'm not too familiar with him.
Yeah, the best I can give you on Michael Grove is that he's essentially the Dodgers' number 7 starter. So Tony Gonsolin, he got hurt, a freak ankle injury in spring. It wasn't even like during the game, and he's still going to miss more time. So once he got hurt, the Dodgers actually were going to turn to rookie Ryan Pepio, a guy that we've had on our show and we're really high on. He's a guy that I think is in the top 100 prospects list on pretty much every outlet out there, and literally on opening day, he was placed on the injured list, I think with an oblique injury. I want to say maybe a groin injury, but that came out of nowhere because he literally made a spring training start a couple days prior. So Michael Grove, come on down. Doesn't have much experience at the AAA level. The Dodgers called him up last year from AA, and it's been a rough start to his season so far. So if you're the Cubs and you're hoping for offense, because like you said, they're having to face Julio, Michael Grove might be your best chance at scoring some runs because he's not a strikeout pitcher and he allows a lot of contact. So, yeah, take the over in whatever game he's starting against the Cubs, probably.
Well, we got Jameson Taillon on the mound against Michael Grove, and he's had 2 starts. The first one wasn't very good. The second one, he was the victim of some bad defense. The Cubs have really kind of made defense the focus. They got a lot of Gold Glovers this year, but there was a lot of errors, and I think that kind of hurt him in general. So this third start, I think, is really going to be one that a lot of Cub fans are going to be looking closely at. Obviously, a lot of us have this game with Michael Grove circled as a chance for the Cubs to win one against the Dodgers. So Taillon's going to have to kind of do that. But, he did great work with the Yankees, and the Cubs think that they can unlock a little bit more. The Cubs have a really good pitching infrastructure, and our pitching coach, Tommy Hotovy, is very well regarded. So hoping to kind of take Jameson Taillon the next level. But, nobody's hitting the panic button after 2 starts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing we have to remind ourselves as baseball fans is that it's so early in the season, and after, again, 2 starts, after 2 weeks of hitting, you do want to hit the panic button. Whereas, guys are being like Dansby Swanson, you're thinking, okay, he's going to be great the rest of the season. But for a fact there's going to be like a 2-week stretch in August where he's like 1 for 25. It's just more magnified at the beginning of the season because you're expecting so much. It's like the sky's falling if things are going wrong. So like you said, only 2 starts. I'm sure all of ththese guys, they're going to be a lot better. At least we can hope, for our sake on our teams, they'll be a little better moving forward.
Now, 2 guys that, of course, have Cub fans, a little bit nervous, gnashing their teeth. Freddie Freeman is just absolutely, what else can you ask for in a ball player? And then to have to sit there and kind of face Mookie Betts, that's a powerful combination. And those guys are off to good starts as usual.
Yeah, that's a 1-2 punch that I just would not want to face if I was an opposing pitcher because Mookie Betts, he's as consistent as you can get. He's been fantastic so far for the Dodgers. It kind of seems like, again, Mookie has been so good. He's just flying under the radar this year, it feels. If you look at his numbers, it'd be a career year for any other player, but for him, it's just another go-around. And Freddie Freeman, I got to see him a lot when he was with the Braves. You got to see him a decent share. But having him in a Dodger uniform, seeing him on a day-to-day basis, I really do think overall as a hitter, he's one of the 3 to 5 best pure hitters in all of baseball because what he's able to do with the plate, it is really incredible. Anytime he gets out, it's like, wow, how did they manage to do that? Or anytime he strikes out or swings at a pitch outside of the zone, you're like, wow. This pitcher needs to go in the Hall of Fame because they got Freddie Freeman to chase. So both those guys at the top of the Dodgers lineup, they've been so good. They've been so consistent. So I'm very happy that they have at least another 5 years together with those contracts the Dodgers gave them.
Unbelievable. And the Cubs have been giving out some contract extensions lately. Today they extended Ian Happ. And before the season started, Nico Horner. And Nico Horner is a guy that just, it's interesting because he doesn't get a lot of national press, but he's been a really good leadoff, probably our best leadoff hitter since we had Dexter Fowler on that 2015, 2016 teams. And you're going to see him. They're just a great double play combination. So you're taking a look at the defense up the middle. You got Yan Gomes catching, you got Swanson and Horner up the middle, and then you have Cody Bellinger in center. And so the Cubs are really focusing on run prevention. But one thing I'm really interested in is that, I just always think about all those West Coast ballparks seem to be very large outfields. And so Nico is really one of those slappy type hitters. And I think he's going to he's going to be a pest for you guys when he gets to Dodger Stadium.
The Cubs just seem to have so many guys where like the casual baseball fan probably won't, know who they are, but they have so many guys where I'm like, if this all can come together, like with Nico, he's a guy where I had as like a potential all-star candidate if things go well for him this season. And again, if you were to ask the average baseball player, they'd probably not know who that is. So I'm excited to see, this Cubs team where a lot of fans kind of just have written them off because this isn't the Cubs team of 6 or 7 years ago. They're a rebuilding team, but they got some names in that lineup. I don't know how you guys are doing injury-wise right now, but I'm assuming everyone should be good to go for this weekend. So I think it's going to be a good one.
Well, that's the interesting piece because we do have one person that's been injured, and that's Seiya Suzuki. He has not started so far, and that's really kind of been a hole defensively in right field because we really didn't have a backup outfielder. So Seiya is supposed to come back at some point in time in this Cubs West Coast road trip. So he hit a home run today for the iCubs, which is our AAA affiliate. And the hope is that, who knows, maybe he starts one of the Dodgers games. If not, then he'll meet up with the team with Oakland. But from what he said today after the game, looks like all systems go. So I'm really, then the Cubs will be at close to full strength as you can get. They got a couple relievers that are nicked up and coming back. But in general, Seiya's been the one injury that's really affected us as opposed to you guys who seem to, that injury to Gavin Lux, I was just the weirdest freak injury I ever seen.
Yeah, I still can't understand it just because a guy's trying to avoid a tag at third base and that leg got completely shattered. And it's the fact, it sucks as a whole because you never want to see a guy get hurt. You never want to see a guy crying, getting carted off the field. The next day he was crying in his interview. But it's just the fact that, he's waited his turn for so long. I think he came up and made his debut in 2019, and he's essentially been like the Dodgers' top prospect going back to like 2017, but there was just never room for him at shortstop because he was behind Corey Seager, then he was behind Manny Machado that one year, then obviously Seager, then Trey Turner, and it's like, wow, you've waited so long, it's finally your chance, and, you tear your ACL and every other thing, so that's got to take a toll so much on a guy. I can't imagine it. And from a baseball perspective, it really hurt the Dodgers big time because now they're having to rely on Miguel Rojas and Chris Taylor, where with how they're currently looking at the plate, I feel like if you and I were taking some at bats in a live game, we would probably have the same shot they would have having to hit because it's ugly right now. I think Chris Taylor's hitting below 100. Miguel Rojas, he might be hitting slightly above 100. Things have not been great. So that Gavin Lux injury, I think, was probably as costly of an injury as you could have had on the entire team because obviously, if you were to lose a Freddie Freeman or a Mookie Betts, like that's a big hurt, but the Dodgers have someone that they can replace at that position. At shortstop, they have no one in the minors, and again, they have Chris Taylor and Miguel Rojas who have been awful, so it'll be interesting to see how they're able to fill that void the rest of the season because it's been bad so far.
So again, the Dodgers didn't make a ton of move in free agency. JD Martinez looks a little bit resurgent. And the thing I think about with JD Martinez is that if he has to be your number 1 or 2 option, that's not good. But if you're telling me he's your number 3, 4 hitter, that's more where he is in his career. So he kind of fits in with the Dodgers really nice.
I've always been a fan of JD Martinez. I just knew he would never become a Dodger because, one, of the whole DH rule, but even then once the NL adopted the DH, the Dodgers were against having an everyday DH. They wanted to rotate guys. They wanted to shuffle guys. So when I saw that they signed him, I was like blown away. I was like, wow, we're just going against everything we've been saying for the last couple of years. But I think you said it perfectly. If JD Martinez is your like number 1 hitter, I mean, I'm sure there are far worse options out there for some bottom barrel teams, but ideally you would want someone else. If he's your number 3 or number 4 hitter, I think that's fantastic. And so far this season, I think, last I heard he was leading the National League in extra base hits. He's looking really solid at the plate. So far it's been a really, really good move by the Dodgers. And again, 1 year, I think for $10 million or something like that. Really can't complain because it's another much needed bat in the Dodgers lineup.
Well, it's going to be a fun one for us. It's going to be some late nights and a lot of coffee for you guys. We have a strong contingent of Cub fans that are out in Hollywood that always liked. I know Bob Newhart's always been out there. Bonnie Hunt, Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine. We got a lot of Chicago-based guys out there who really enjoy going. I know they rent a box at Dodger Stadium. I've never been there. It's on my bucket list to get out and see the park, but I'm looking forward. And like I said, I just want the Cubs to be able to compete really well and take a couple games from the Dodgers after last year's disaster.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, I think you can only go up from here. You would think that one game. I mean, if you win one game, that's already a much better season than the year prior. So I'm hoping for a competitive series. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And again, Cody Bellinger, that's going to be a fun, warm welcome for Dodger fans. And another one as well, Edwin Rios makes his return to Dodger Stadium as well. So there's going to be a couple guys that are going to get warm standing ovations from Dodgers fans.
He hasn't gotten a lot of at-bats yet. He does have a home run, 2-run blast, but man, that kid has some pop. I saw him in spring training and he was hitting him over the berm. So that was fun to watch.
I am still upset that the Dodgers did not bring him back. I will say, for Cubs fans, be patient, because Edwin Rios, I don't know if this number is still true, but at the time of when he got hurt last year with the Dodgers, I believe he had like either the highest home run rate in baseball history, like home runs per at bat, or it was just slightly behind Babe Ruth. This guy can hit homers like no one I've seen before. The issue is he gets hurt a lot and his strikeout rate is really high. But even then, I'm looking at his numbers this season, only 8 at bats. He's 1 for 8. But he has an OPS plus of 110, so he's going to be a great player if he's able to stay healthy. And again, there might be 10 to 15 homers this year where you sit back and go, yeah, that thing definitely landed on the street, because that's not in the stadium.
Out of curiosity, how is he on defense? Because again, I think he's pretty much DH for most of his time here.
So that's pretty much, I think, the reason why the Dodgers didn't bring it back was because defensively he wasn't great. He was also behind Justin Turner at third base and then Freddie Freeman at first base. So I don't know if they have him playing anywhere other than third and first. But yeah, DH seems like the move, just because, again, defensively, let's just say there are better options out there than Edwin Rios.
Well, Blake, I really appreciate you, coming on here and talking some Dodgers with me. And I hope you got a little bit of info on the Cubs, some intel that you can pass along to your the readers of your Substack. And, if you ever come out to Wrigley, hit me up, man, and I'll show you a good time around here.
I definitely will. Last time I was at Wrigley was about 15 years ago, before all these renovations, so I need to make it back. I need to catch another game there. And I also don't really remember much of it. I think I was in one of those spots where you're sitting behind a pole and you can't really see a whole lot. So yeah, definitely need to come back. And yeah, I'm hoping it's a fun series this week, and I'm hoping it's a competitive series. And for your sake, maybe not this series, but I hope the Cubs just can get at least one. Get at least one and build some momentum towards next season. Then maybe in 2024, they can get 2 wins and just keep building momentum from there.
Maybe we have some repeats of 2016, 2017. What do you think, Blake?
Well, hey, if it's the 2017 outcome, sign me up. Sign me up. But
I'll take the 2016 one.
I will say the 2016 outcome, given the circumstances, even looking back at it, you can't be too upset because of what happened. It's like, okay, they're doing something that pretty much every fan has never actually witnessed in person, so we'll allow it. We'll let this one slide. But yeah, give me the 2017 version, if that's my preference.
Sounds good, Blake. Thank you so much for jumping on, and we'll talk to you later, bud.
This is the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season 2. It's episode 27. Breaking news right before we had the Cubs' third game against the Mariners. Ian Happ was extended. Crawly, great interview previewing the Dodgers series.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. We'll see what happens here, but when we take a look at the standings, you're not going to be too upset about this as a Cub fan. The Cubs are 6-5; they're 2 games back. Milwaukee's still at first. Then comes Pittsburgh at 7-5, Cincinnati 4-6, and St. Louis 4-7. So some of those teams still have to play their games tonight. So that'll be, hopefully the Cubs can kind of have a good series.
Anytime I see St. Louis at the bottom, Crawly, I'm going to be happy.
Oh, absolutely. When we look at the injury/roster report, Kyle Hendricks will throw a 2-inning live BP today. So every day getting a little bit closer. Seiya Suzuki will start again tonight. He played last night for 7 innings and went 0 for 4. He's 2 for 9 in the 3 games he has played. According to David Ross, best case scenario is Seiya rejoins the team at some point on this West Coast trip to LA and Oakland. Brandon Hughes, left-hander that we've been talking about, he pitched 2/3 of an inning. He struggled. He gave up 4 hits and 3 runs with a walk, no strikeouts. He gave up a home run, but good to see that he's throwing, he's in games, and hopefully to the Cubs sooner rather than later. You have Cody Hewer through 1 inning of live BP as he makes his way back from Tommy John surgery. We talked about Javier Assad being sent to AAA, option to AAA, and Ross said that, they're going to stretch out Javier Assad as a potential starter, but he can also be a bullpen option too if they need. Again, it would be a perfect time to get a guy like Assad up after using all those pitchers. Granted that he can get some guys out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
So the Cubs get ready to take their first West Coast road trip. The Dodgers have started a little slow and are 6-6 so far this season, tied for third place in the NL West. They're finishing up a series with San Francisco tonight with Clayton Kershaw on the mound. That series is tied at 1. The Cubs played the Dodgers 7 times in 2022, and Dustin, they lost all 7 games, so you can only go up, right?
Can only go up, and you won't have to face Kershaw, so there you go. 2 things going for the Cubs.
The Cubs took 2 out of 3 against the Mariners, so looking at the matchups on Friday, Justin Steele gets the start. He's 1-0 with a .75 ERA. He's pitched 12 innings with 11 strikeouts. In his last start against the Rangers, he pitched 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 runs, but also had 4 walks and only 3 Ks. So he had a 7-start streak of 5 strikeouts or more in an outing snapped. Even though the results have been good, Dustin, I feel like we haven't seen the best of Justin Steele just yet, and I think this Dodger lineup will be a good test.
Very good test. I'm hoping to stay up late Friday night and catch all of this one.
Oh, yeah, it's those great late-night West Coast games.
Well, when you get up at 2:30 in the morning on Friday, it'll be tough to stay up until midnight, but whatever.
Well, you get Saturday off, right?
Saturday off, yeah. Oh, yeah, Saturday and Sunday off.
So Thursday they're off, so Friday is the game, so you can stay up late Friday and you don't get up Saturday morning.
That's right.
So the LA will counter with former Met Noah Syndergaard. Syndergaard is 1-0 with a 6.30 ERA and 2 starts, pitching 10 innings with 8 Ks. In his last start against the Diamondbacks, he went 4 innings pitched and gave up 8 hits on 6 runs with 2 Ks. Syndergaard is not the cut-up Thor that you saw in the early Marvel movies. He is more like the overweight, slothy Thor that you saw in the Infinity Endgames. He's lost a little velocity on his fastball. He's not the same pitcher that I remember looking at 2015 when the Cubs were in the NLCS and got dominated by that Mets pitching staff. So I like that matchup right there. Hopefully things go well. Saturday, we'll see Jamison Tyone make his 3rd start of the year. He's 0-2 with a 7 ERA, pitching 9 innings with 9 Ks. His first start against the Brewers was not great, but I thought he looked better against the Rangers, but was some victim of some bad defense that hurt him. If you remember, there were errors by Madrigal and Hosmer, as well as a ball that was misplayed in right field by Mancini. I think it made the numbers look a lot worse than the performance actually was. He had 7 strikeouts in 5 innings. The Dodgers, on the other hand, they have some injuries in their starting pitching. You're going to see Michael Grove for the Dodgers. The Cubs have never faced him before. He's made 6 starts for the Dodgers last year. This year he's 0-1. He faced he did okay in his first start against the Rockies, but got pounded by the Diamondbacks in his last start, going 3.1 innings, giving up 9 runs on 12 hits with 1 walk and 4 Ks. And then we get to the finale where Drew Smyly takes the ball for the Cubs. He's 0-1 with a 6.52 ERA and 2 starts, going 9.2 innings pitched with 10 Ks. Like Talion, he had an awful bad start, giving up 6 runs against the Reds, but he bounced back nicely versus the Mariners, going 5 innings and only giving up 1 run. He was in line for the win before Fulmer blew the save in the 9th. So this one's going to be tough because the Dodgers are going to be handing their ball to one of their best pitchers on their staff, and that's Julio Urias. Hard to believe, Dustin, that Urias is only 26 years old. I remember him pitching against the Cubs in 2016 on their World Series run in the NLCS. So, he was only 20 years old when that happened.
Yeah, he's awfully good. There's no doubt about that. And he's got a nice 3-0 start, 1.50 ERA, pitching 18 innings, 20 Ks. And against the Giants, pitched 6 innings, gave up 4 hits, 1 earned, 2 walks, and 8 Ks. So the Cubs will have to have some good approaches when they go up to bat against this guy. Crawly, I want to go back to Game 2, and I think this is a really important outing for Jamison Tyone.
Yeah, you would like him to have a good start, and I feel, like I said, I felt like the first one was bad, and I think the first one was on him. I think the second one, he looked a lot better. Just, bad defense for 1 inning really kind of hurt him. And so, I think he's going to be okay. And I'm kind of actually glad that he's, we'll see what he does. But I'm not, it's the first month of the season and you just don't want to get too jumpy on any of these guys right away. Sometimes some guys take a little bit while to get locked in. Others just come out of the gate. You've seen Marcus come out of the gate really good. Last year he didn't. So I got a feeling that Jameson is going to be a really good addition to this staff. And the Dodgers staff is a really tough one. So their hitters. So let's see what he can do. But not super overly concerned on this one game.
All right, Crawly, as we continue to preview the upcoming series against the Dodgers, let's talk who's hot and who is not hot.
All righty, let's go with hot. And there is the hottest Cub in the last week has been Nico Horner, 9 for 21 with 1 double and 3 RBIs. Trey Mancini is 7 for 21 with 1 homer. He had his first homer the other day and 4 RBIs. Not Ian Happ, 4 for his last 19. So hopefully with this contract all done, he can kind of get a little bit more loose. And then Patrick Wisdom is 2 for his last 16.
Not good enough. Not good enough. So I agree with your hots and nots. There's no the numbers tell the stories. How about the Dodgers? Who's doing well for them?
Well, Freddie Freeman is always doing well for them, isn't he? So he's 10 for 27 with 3 doubles and a home run. JD Martinez is getting a little bit of a resurgence. He struggled in Boston the last few years. He's doing well and out in LA, out in La La Land. 7 for 22 with 4 doubles, a triple, and 5 RBIs. But on the not side, Max Muncy is 4 for 17, but 2 home runs and 9 RBIs. So try not to put anyone in front of Max Muncy because he can still hit them.
All right, Crawly, prediction time. 3 games against the Dodgers. They should all be tough. I'll go first this time. I'm going to go 1 out of 3. Don't get swept. And I'm predicting that Friday is the game they're going to win.
Yeah, I like that. I'm going to go a little bit more optimistic just because the Cubs just had such a good homestand. I know they're playing away in Dodger Stadium, and the West Coast thing is always tough as a good Dodgers team. I got a feeling I don't have a lot of stock in the Cubs beating Urias, but I do feel like with Tyone and with Steele, the Cubs have a chance to take those 2 games. So I'm gonna try to will it into existence.
All right, Crawly, that's a wrap. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope everybody listening gets a great weekend. Enjoy the fact that the Cubs have won 2 series in a row and are heading out west. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow us on the socials. Fly the W on Facebook, Fly the W670. Instagram, you can email us, flythew670gmail.com. And now you can also watch us on YouTube by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Crawly, have a great weekend, and we will connect either on Sunday or Monday.
Yep, get the coffee pots ready, Cubs fans. West Coast road trip. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!